The Last of Us has a wide variety of movements with various different speeds. There is crouch speed, walking speed, slow jog speed, sprint speed, you can jump and vault, only move L3 a little bit to do tiny steps, and Joel's movement is very precise with a 360 degrees movement. Out of these, sprinting is the fastest, but not for us speedrunners. We found techniques, movements and glitches that enable Joel to go even faster, way faster, at lightning speed. The Last of Us came out 13 years ago and the fastest movement speed to this date has just been discovered. First, let's go back in time to understand how this movement was developed. In March 2016, Allround X, my faction's esports teammate back then, and me, for the first time ever, found a movement technique that was entirely new and went beyond what Naughty Dog intended for the players. I always called this movement the weapon switch glitch, but a few years later, people started calling it crab walk, which originates in this animation where Joel has full sprint speed while being crouched. You might know this glitch if you have played Factions. Yes, I am actually the one who found that and brought it to the Factions community. Or to be precise, Allround came up to me saying he once did a thing where he could use listening mode while sprinting when you switch weapons. This trick is not that easy to do. It requires some practice, so I tried figuring out how this works and then came up with a way to do this consistently. If we start switching items or weapons in our inventory as soon as the character is about to put a gun or a melee weapon away, the character basically gets softlocked in his animation and will not change his movement speed or his crouching or standing state until we stop our inputs. This means this movement gives us an infinite sprint. In the multiplayer, we run out of sprint after a few seconds, so this glitch made it possible to sprint infinitely. Not only that, in the multiplayer we also appear on the enemy's radar when being close to them and sprinting. This glitch gets rid of that too. Lastly, it is also possible to use listening mode in this state, meaning in total we have an infinite sprint, don't appear on the enemy's radar and on top of that can use listening mode while sprinting. Completely overpowered. Since we don't even need to hold L3 forward anymore during the weapon switch, this also has the effect in the single player that enemies can't stagger us anymore with their bullets. Naughty Dog abandoned The Last of Us by the end of 2015, so this glitch never got patched out. I've already been a speedrunner at that point, so my next step was to check this glitch in the single player, and man, over the years we found so many strats and timesaves that involve this technique, it's crazy. A speedrun world record without this movement would be unthinkable. What's really cool about it is that this softlock has many different uses. Here in Bill's town for example, we used to fire a bullet to alert the clickers behind us and therefore get sprint speed, which saves a few seconds. However, the sprint speed runs out eventually when passing this sign. Doing the weapon switch here makes Joel get stuck in that animation and therefore Joel can sprint all the way down the road, which saves multiple seconds. I haven't mentioned yet that we can't change the direction when in this state, so this limits it a bit. Here in winter, playing as Ellie, the game wants us to go along this path with a sidewalk animation. With the weapon switch we can just run over it, saving 7 seconds on this spot alone, which is huge for a speedrun. It also gives the enemies less time to shoot us, so this also means we can just run through all of this instead of taking care of the enemies first. Right after this, there are some pipes we can only get through while being crouched. The weapon switch is very interesting because we can softlock the character into a sprint animation, then press circle during it and trick the game into thinking we are crouched, meaning we can pass these pipes fully sprinting, saving multiple seconds. These were just a few examples, but as you can see, there are many different uses of the weapon switch glitch. Overall, however, even with this glitch, we still either have crouch, jog or sprint speed. So how do we gain some speed now? Speedrunners are playing the remastered version of the game, which is basically the exact same as the original game, just in 60 FPS. Those higher FPS came with a few side effects though. One of them are launches. In certain areas, when Joel gets squeezed in between some objects, for example when being below a log or going somewhere where he needs to be crouched, we can get launched out of it. Some require some more precise inputs where we need to time our crouch and sprint inputs. For a few though, we don't need to do anything but holding down sprint. For example here, in Outskirts. When going below this wooden thing and then holding down sprint, we can get quite a decent launch, which for a very small moment increases Joel's movement speed. There are a few spots that were always part of our strats, but due to their limitation of only increasing the speed for like 0.1 second, they were pretty minor. All that changed a few months ago. On 25th November 2025, Nick Pierce88 posted this clip on the Last of Us speedrunning Discord. I'll put the link for the Discord in the description. He found out that when you start mashing the sprint button in the exact moment Joel gets launched, you can extend the launch. When mashing sprint like that, it takes the game longer to bring Joel back into a normal movement animation, making him stuck in that launch animation for a bit longer. While working on this video, I found out that it doesn't have to be a sprint input, which is L1 for me. We can also achieve this by mashing circle or quickly rotating L3. When I saw that, I tried it by myself and I noticed the faster we mash, the longer our launch. With my fastest mashing, I got this result then.
Outside.
I could make Joel launch until the end of this section, which would save 7 seconds. This is already huge, but now the question was, where else could this get used? I tried it in other places where I knew Joel could get launched. It worked in sewers, and damn. Unfortunately, there were not many places where we could get a launch, and on top of that, there are some restrictions to it. We can't really change Joel's direction for the launch, meaning even if there is a place we can get launched, it also needs to be an object that pushes Joel to a direction that's useful for our speedruns. When testing this Outskirts one further, it also didn't look well. Testing it with real run conditions, Tess and Ellie are blocking the left side, which is a problem. When going the right side, however, Joel will fall down, which cancels the launch animation. This really didn't look good. We put this trick on the side, but 2 days later I had an idea. Remember the weapon switch glitch I was showing you earlier, where we softlock the character in his animation to keep the sprint speed? What if we start a weapon switch in the exact moment the game launches Joel out of cover? What if that makes us keep the launch speed for the duration of our weapon switch? Would that work? The first section that came to my mind was the sink in Bus Depot, where we always try to get a small launch in runs that saves 1 second. After a few tries I got it to work. I had this little clip and sent it to Thrill with the message, "It's hard to see, but this is the best place to have tested this. I always thought it was possible, but this clip proves it." It is possible to use the weapon switch glitch to store a launch. Probably useless, but still interesting, because this means technically it's possible to have the speed of a legendary launch for multiple seconds to get boosted across an entire area. Right after that I tried it in the Outskirts section from earlier, and holy moly, I couldn't believe what happened. Look at this.
This rain ain't gonna do us any good.
Oh shit. I'm actually outside.
Up this way.
This launch saves 7 seconds and I posted it on the Discord with the statement that this is the hardest movement tech in the game. And now you might think, what? Why? This looks fairly simple, right? Just press sprint and switch the weapons. Yeah, no. I want to explain how this works and how precise this technique is, but before that, let me show you a few more time saves I found with this first. An hour later I found a launch in sewers. This saves 6 seconds. In Dam, I found a launch that saves 4 seconds for the all collectibles category, but only 1.5 seconds for the any percent category, since it pushes us a bit far left here.
Next squirrel I see, I'm going to.
Let's get past this place, then we can scrounge up some food.
Well, if I...
In Beyond the Wall, I found a small 1 second time save, and then a 2 second time save in the town in winter. These were the spots where, from our runs, we already knew it was possible to get small boosts or even launches, so this seemed to be it. In the following days, however, I started testing areas and objects we usually don't use or go to in our speedruns. So a week later I found this 2 second time save in Science Building.
That's good, right?
Here I got interrupted. Something even crazier happened, and little did I know that the launches I just found will already be obsolete in a few moments. On 5th December 2025, I was playing around in some sections. If you've played the game, you might know there is a mechanic where the game pushes the character out of cover when running into it while starting a crouch, but then pressing sprint again. When playing the game, sometimes this could happen by accident, and we always make sure to not press sprint right away, otherwise we just bounce off a little or bonk into the wall. For some objects, the game pushes us away quite strongly, like this. So, once again, my thought was, what if I start the weapon switch glitch in that exact moment? And then this happened. I couldn't believe my eyes. This movement speed was so insanely fast, I couldn't even handle the controls anymore. Joel was just so fast it was absurd. I call this trick the backwards launch, since Joel will always move backwards since you have to face the wall to trigger this speed. Okay, we have this new trick, the fastest movement in the game, but what now? I was in the middle of testing the previous launch method on other objects in the game, so I continued that and also checked the previous spots again. The backwards launch works in Outskirts, giving us another method of getting the time save here, even though it doesn't save additional time. In the following days, I couldn't really find any time saves with the launch, unfortunately. I was a bit sad, because we had this insane movement tech now, but couldn't make use of it. I kinda went through the entire game, but couldn't find any useful spots. A few days later, I tried again, because that couldn't be it, right? And 1 week after finding the first backwards launch, I found a huge time save of 12 seconds in capital. I was so happy. Not only can this get shown off in runs now and save a decent amount of time, but this significantly increases the intensity of the run. This was just a spot where we would move forward for 30 seconds without doing anything. Now this turned into a section that requires precise movement, and the skill ceiling of any percent speedruns has already been so extraordinary high, any backwards launch that gets added to the run now pushes it over the moon. While recording the clips for this video, I found an even faster way of doing this launch, saving another 3 seconds and 15 seconds in total. 2 days later, I found a small 2-second time save for the all collectibles category in University. For any percent, we don't need to get off the horse here, so it doesn't save time. Right after that, I found a big launch in winter. I tried this for 2 hours, only to find out it's not faster. The reason for that is, in order to start a weapon switch, we need a weapon. And Ellie doesn't have a weapon here, meaning we would need to kill an enemy and grab his weapon, which ultimately loses too much time to make this worth it. The next day I found something huge again. Another 12-second time save, this time in the cargo section. This is a super difficult and precise launch, since the game disables almost every movement for this section. You can't even jog here, so in our speedruns we always crouched, since crouching is faster than Joel's walk. It feels super strange to start a backwards launch from that slow movement speed. But yeah, we went from crouch speed to a backwards launch, from the slowest possible movement to the fastest one. And what's really cool about this is that after the launch we are so far away from a lean that the game enables jog speed afterwards. The game does that when being very far away from NPCs, meaning this even saves time after getting the launch. I also found a 1-second time save for all collectibles with a normal weapon switch launch in downtown. Also, while recording clips for this video, I was thinking of doing a backwards launch for the science building launch I found, the one that saves 2 seconds. While trying to get a good clip of this, out of nowhere I got an extremely precise angle that allowed me to get launched across the entire room.
No bodies.
This is huge and it saves 12 seconds. There is one final thing. Just a few weeks ago, I actually found a new out of bounds with a backwards launch and an entirely new skip. But before I show it to you, it's best to first explain how this launch even works, because as I said, it is incredibly difficult. Anyone who has tried the weapon switch glitch in Factions already knows that this trick alone can be very tricky and definitely requires some practice in order to pull it off consistently. As I said, we need to have a certain amount of items in our inventory, so the earliest point in the game where we can do it is after slums and cargo, when picking up a melee weapon for the first time. The easiest and fastest way of doing it is when we have a long gun, a pistol, a medkit and or a brick or bottle. From here we want to start whatever movement we want to get, for example a sprint. Then switch from one gun to the other and start rotating the inventory as soon as the character puts the weapon away. There are some visual cues for that, but I always go by my feeling. As soon as the weapon switch begins, we can let go of L3, which is even necessary to not get the sidewalk animation in winter, for example. And from here, the character moves like that until we let go of the D-pad. The grab walk requires a circle input right in the moment the softlock comes in. This is the weapon switch glitch. For the normal launches, we need to crouch under the object, then start holding sprint and initiate the weapon switch right in the moment the game launches us. The backwards launches, however, are way more difficult. First, we need to approach the object we want to get launched off from, but not only approach it, we need to have a very specific angle, which is also a bit different for each object. We also need to have gained some movement momentum, which builds up after moving forward for around a second. The thing is that Joel's movement is very precise and he can move 360 degrees, and we have control over each little step and each degree, so it's already hard enough to move towards the object at the correct angle, especially when sprinting. From here, we want to switch to the other weapon a few steps before approaching the object, since it takes 1 to 1.5 seconds until we can start a weapon switch glitch, and we want to have it ready when reaching the object. During this second, just a few frames before hitting the object, we need a precise circle input to make Joel crouch, into a sprint or another crouch input around 0.2 seconds later, which makes Joel stand up again and initiates the getting pushed away animation. In that exact moment, we need to begin rotating the inventory, which then softlocks Joel in that boost animation. All in all, that means we need to approach the object from a precise angle already, and then we have 1 second in which we have to do an almost frame perfect circle input, an almost frame perfect L1 or circle input, and a 0.5 seconds time window for the weapon switch, and each of these launches has some different conditions. Doing all of this while sprinting makes it even harder, since it's harder to achieve the correct angle, and when running towards the object, we need to know the correct moment when initiating all these inputs. So we basically have multiple frame perfect inputs with different buttons, and we do them during the 1 second time window for the weapon switch, while also still moving L3 to get the correct angle. The thing is, these tricks are viable for runs, since they save enough time, and with some practice we should get them very often. But the difficulty is ridiculous now. It was already ridiculous before finding these launches. Now let me show you the final thing I found with this, a small outskirts skip. This angle and the speed of the launch boost us against an object that then pushes Joel up and out of bounds. This skip saves 10 seconds, but this one is actually too hard to try in runs. After I got this, I tried for 3 hours to just replicate the out of bounds once, but I couldn't get it. Getting this trick is even infinitely harder than what I just described with the usual backwards launch. This literally must be like 5 frame perfect inputs within 1 second in a 60 FPS game, and the correct angle on the truck is also very small. Considering this only saves 10 seconds, I doubt we will ever see this skip in a world record run. However, all the other launches save up to 1 minute, raise the skill gap and make the run even more intense, which is pretty nice. This is everything I wanted to show with the new launches, but I have a small bonus for the end. Technically, an even faster movement speed has been discovered in the meantime, not including teleports of course. The reason I didn't include this is because it's so glitchy and weird that it's hard to even call this a movement. It's more of a zip, and it's also very limited. On 5th February 2026, Project posted a video in the Discord and I couldn't believe my eyes. He found a glitch where you trick the game into thinking Joel has mounted the horse, even though he hasn't. You do this by doing melee attacks and then holding down triangle for 1 second. This changes Joel's hitbox, and one side effect is that Joel can't really go up the stairs anymore. He can only go up the stairs when moving backwards. If you move down the stairs, however, the game pushes and launches Joel away from them, resulting in the fastest movement speed this game has to offer. The problem here is that Joel's hitbox is so weird, you get pushed around by everything, and there are only 2 real sections where we can dismount the horse. The sad thing is, University and the Dam are late parts of the game, and The Last of Us gets more skip-proof the further you approach the game. The later chapters work so differently when it comes to the checkpoint conditions and map design, it's basically impossible to skip anything in University or Dam. There is one small time save, but it's actually so insanely hard to get and only saves 5 seconds. It's probably not worth going for in runs, especially since this comes 1.5 hours into the run and you can die very easily when trying this. The key is to start a weapon switch the moment the game bounces Joel off the truck. If you start the weapon switch before that, you won't get pushed to the left and likely die. If you start the weapon switch too late, you will get bonked somewhere on the side and get stuck and then lose time. The thing is, the time window for this weapon switch is 0.3 seconds maximum, and even then, the setup and the rest of this trick are hard too. This trick also has many side effects. In this state, you can almost clip through any wall and do weird things, but I won't cover this any further. Lastly, I want to leave you with some extreme movement examples of this trick in the Dam chapter. They look insane and are really cool to watch. Enjoy and thank you for watching.